so sweet. Good boy. He's a good boy.
You okay, baby?
Hello, friends. Welcome to Chickenlandia. My name is Dahlia. I'm a backyard chicken educator, also known as the president of Chickenlandia. Raising chickens has been the best way for me to find peace and joy in my life, and I want to help you find that too. How you doing, Gallagher? Huh? You really don't like it if I hold you, but you remind me of your daddy, Bubblicious, and so I like to hold you sometimes. I hope that's okay. All right, I'll put you down. My friends, what you are looking at right here in front of you is a sucker. I could not help it. So today I am going to tell you the story of what happened and how I ended up with a special needs duck in my flock. His name is Ivar, and I've been calling him Baby Ivar. So this is a story as old as Chickenlandia. A friend of mine called me, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and he said, hey, I've got this special needs duck. He was on his way to auction. So little Ivar came from a local breeder. Ivar did not fit in the breeding program, obviously, because he has a pretty serious birth defect. I'm not completely sure what's going on with Ivar. I know that he was born with this defect, and it's basically like a scoliosis of the neck. I guess you could call it cervical scoliosis. It's a pretty extreme deformity and could be caused by some kind of genetic problem. It could be a nutritional deficiency that actually happened in the egg. Could be a number of things, but either way, he's like this. And so the person that was raising him decided, I don't think I can rehome him as a pet because, a lot of people are not going to take an animal like this. So I am going to take him to the auction to be sold off. And when a duck or a chicken goes to auction, especially if they're not a very desirable breed and they can't really be pets, and especially if they have some kind of deformity, it's pretty much a given what's going to happen to them. So Ivar's fate was not very good before my friend stepped in and asked if he could take him. My friend knows me pretty well. He's the same guy that brought me Jolene. He didn't even ask, he just brought me Jolene. And if you know the story of Jolene, she was also kind of a reject and she ended up here. And I had a lot of reservation about this because Ivar is a male duck, also known as a drake. And drakes living with chickens is sometimes not a very good situation, especially if it's a standard sized drake and, I have small chickens. Duck anatomy is very different from chicken anatomy, and ducks are really rude during breeding season, and they will do things without asking, and they can really injure chickens. They can even kill chickens. So it can sometimes be a very bad scenario to have a full-grown drake in a flock of chickens. Now, I do have a little drake. His name is Mork. He's also a special needs guy, but he is small. He's a call duck, and he's got a couple of call girlfriends, and he leaves the chickens alone. I have watched him very carefully to make sure that he doesn't get aggressive towards the chickens, but he's pretty much afraid of them, so he doesn't mess with them. But Ivar's big. He's different. He's different from Mork. Baby Ivar, and yes, I'm calling him a baby. He's right here. Hey, buddy. Hey, sweetheart. He's a big boy, but he's a baby. He's like 10 weeks old. Ducks grow really fast. They're like super cute and fluffy and little when they're first hatched, but they grow really, really quick. And by the time I got Ivar, he was about 8 weeks old, but he was already pretty big. But anyway, my friend brought him over and he was absolutely terrified.
You okay, baby?
He just really wouldn't settle down. Like usually when I get a rescue animal, even if they've been through a lot, I can give them food or whatever and they kind of chill out, they relax a little bit, they start to peck and scratch or dabble or do whatever they do and attempt to come to some kind of normalcy. But Ivar just was not doing that. He was really, really scared. So whenever I bring in a rescue animal, whether it's a chicken or a duck or a dog, especially if they're really having a hard time, I will give give them a couple of different supplements. The first thing I will give them is something called Rescue Remedy, and that is a flower essence. It's from a company called Bach. And what that does is helps them kind of calm down and like accept what's going on and relax a little bit. The other thing that I will give to an animal if they're really scared, like what Ivar was, is I will give them the homeopathic aconite. And aconite is really good for fear or shock or like something that happens like suddenly that just kind of shocks you, even like a sudden illness or a sudden injury. Aconite is really good for that kind of stuff. So there was no way I was gonna dose him in the mouth because he did not like me picking him up. So I just put these in his water. I put a couple drops of the Rescue Remedy and a couple of pellets of aconite in his water. And I could tell it helped a little bit, but he just wasn't happy. I was keeping him separate from the flock because he was a baby, and I wanted them to see him and I wanted him to be able to see the flock, but I didn't want him to be in danger. And I really didn't know how the ducks would accept him. And I didn't know how the chickens would accept him. And I was really surprised by what happened. So before I show you what happened when I let baby Ivar out into the chicken yard for the first time, I want to address something because I'm sure some of you are wondering, is there anything that I can do to reverse this condition or help it to improve? And the answer to that question is I really don't know. I have been in contact with my vet. We're trying to figure out if there's anything that we can do for him. I don't want to further traumatize Ivar, and he really doesn't like to be handled, and he's actually doing quite well. So I will definitely be conservative on what I'm willing to do to, straighten out his neck, if that's even a possibility. But the one thing I am doing is I'm really supporting him nutritionally because, whenever there's anything like this, like some kind of a nervous system condition, sometimes vitamins can help that, sometimes certain nutrients can help that. As soon as he got here, I started giving him nettles, I started giving him plantain, and I started giving him as many dandelion leaves as I could find in the yard. And the reason for that is because all three of those have high levels of magnesium and phosphorus, which is really good for the nervous system. I think it's dandelion that is high in B1, I always forget. And that's thiamine, and thiamine is really good for wryneck, and they all three are also high in vitamin E, and that's also really good for wryneck. These herbs are something that I use a lot in my flock, especially lately, because I've realized that they're just so good for the nervous system and so good for just supporting animals, especially if they've had illness. And I've had illness in my flock. I possibly have Merrick's in my flock. I have had coccidiosis in my flock. I've had some chickens that have been on Corid. If you have chickens that have been on Corid, or otherwise known as Amprolium, these would be really good herbs to give to your chickens. And you can find them. I actually found plantain in my yard. Obviously, I've got dandelion in my yard. I don't have that much plantain, so I also buy plantain and I buy nettles, even though I do have nettles in my yard. They're right there. See that? Right there. But I absolutely hate picking these things. Even if I wear gloves or whatever, I always get stung, and I'm really allergic to stinging nettle. I get super cranky and I just absolutely don't like it, even though I would probably save some money. So instead, I buy the stinging nettle and I also buy the plantain from a company called Small Pet Select. I will make a tea out of them, or I'll just open up the bag and sprinkle it into their feed and they eat it. They like the taste of these herbs. They're like mild tasting herbs. That has been something that I have done. I have seen a little bit of improvement with Ivar since he got here, so maybe that's having some kind of an effect. I hope so. I give that to my whole flock now, so they're all getting all those good yummy vitamins and everything. And also, I have the whole flock on starter feed right now, because if you have younger chickens in the flock or younger ducks in a flock, it's better to move the whole flock to starter feed and then make sure you're supplementing calcium and stuff than to have the babies eating layer feed. I think just with all that good nutrition, he is improving a little bit and he's growing. He's getting along great. And let me show you what the reaction was when I first let him out of his little run. When I let Ivar out, I was shocked because Mork, who I thought was going to be mean to him, was actually really nice to him and just kind of ignored him and let him be around. My 2 little call hens, they were rude to him. I absolutely expected that. They've definitely calmed down a lot. And then my 2 bigger ones, I should mention, I haven't talked about this on my channel, but I lost Duckles. She was my runner duck. She was very old. I think she was over 10 years old. I lost her recently. So right now the standard size ducks I have are Dice, and she's a snowy mallard. And then I have Walter. And they're both afraid of Ivar. They run from him, and he kind of like follows after them because he's a baby, and I think he thinks, oh, this is my mother, and they do not like that. But overall, like, he's getting along great. The chickens are ignoring him. He's dabbling around. I have seen him get into a pool so he can swim, which was a surprise because I didn't know about that. All of that is great, and he's obviously eating and drinking very well. I've never seen him eat, but I know he's eating because he's like twice the size that he was when he got here. He's eating. This is literally the first time I've ever seen him eat. Because Ivar is a drake, I don't know whether or not, as he matures and he goes into the next breeding season, like when we go into spring, I don't know if I'll be able to keep him with my flock. I might have to, I don't know, build a whole new area for him because I love him. I love him. Like, I immediately fell in love with him. I did get to hold him a few times, and once you've done that, it's just like, okay, that's it. You're my duck. I love you. I'm gonna do whatever I can for you. And I realize a lot of people can't do that, and there's never any judgment against that. Any duck or chicken that is not raised in a factory farm and is being well cared for while they're here, I'm good with that. But Ivar ended up in Chickenlandia, so we're gonna love him for as long as we can. So I do want to tell you, Ivar was not his original name. He originally came with the name Igor, which is very cute. Super cute name. My friend named him Igor. Originally, I was calling him Igor for the first few days, but I really just didn't want Ivar's identity to be revolved around this, perceived handicap that he has. I wanted him to just be his own duck, and I didn't want to concentrate on that. I want him to be as normal as he can. So I was like, you know what? I told my friend, I said, hey, Igor's a really cute name, but I'm going to change his name because I don't want that to be his identity. I'm going to call him Ivar. And I've been calling him Baby Ivar because he's my baby, right? You're my sweet baby. You're a good boy, and I love you. So, my friends, that is the story of the week for Chickenlandia. It's a story about second chances. And I'm just wondering, do you guys have a story of a second chance? Maybe you got a second chance. Maybe you gave somebody else a second chance at life. I'd love to hear about it. Put it in the comments. But the one thing I want you to know above everything else is that you are always welcome in Chickenlandia. Bye.